The views or opinions expressed on Ann Arbor Inclusive do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the City of Ann Arbor and the Commission on Disability Issues. For more information about the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues, please visit a2gov.org/disability resources.
Hello everyone and welcome to Ann Arbor Inclusive. I'm Zach Damon. We have a wonderful show for you today as Katie Monkiewicz of the Ann Arbor District Library joins us in studio. Well, let's get the ball rolling, Katie, shall we?
Sure.
So first of all, thank you for joining us on Ann Arbor Inclusive.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, no problem. It's a pleasure to have you. So one of the first questions I wanted to ask you, because I was curious, but how long has the Ann Arbor District Library, Washtenaw Library for the Blind and Physically Disabled, what a mouthful, been in existence?
So the Washtenaw Library for the Blind and Physically Disabled is administered by the Ann Arbor District Library, and that's been going on for about 8 years. And prior to that, the Washtenaw Library for the Blind and Physically Disabled was administered by Washtenaw County.
Okay, wonderful. And, you know, it's really interesting, too, because they're just always going through, I think, you know, innovations and always adding things, excuse me. And so it's just, you know, a very, very fun place. You know, I've been there quite a bit and really enjoy it. What first got you interested in sort of working for the Ann Arbor District Library?
Well, I was working in a social work position, and I was helping a client do a job search. And I ran across this very interesting looking job posting for a job in the Outreach and Neighborhood Services Department of the Ann Arbor District Library. And I thought, working in a library might be really fun, and I might really like getting out there and telling people about it and learning about all the services and then being able to pass that on. And so I applied for the job, and I got it, and almost 9 years later, it has turned out to be a very good fit. It's a very fun job.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's nice you're able to sort of read between the lines and, you know, figure out what the position was all about. Sorry, it's a bad joke. But no, I mean, I think it's amazing, too, that it's just become something that you really enjoy. I mean, you've been with the Ann Arbor District Library now for 8 years. I mean, what are some of the wonderful changes that you've experienced sort of going through that career?
Well, with the Washtenaw Library for the Blind and Physically Disabled, when we first started administering the service, we were primarily dealing in audiobooks on cassette.
Sure. And
our patrons had cassette players, which were these large, yellow, sort of clunky, hard-to-carry machines, and the cassettes came in boxes with multiple cassettes, and you'd need to flip them over and rewind them and keep track and everything. And if you have a visual impairment, you can imagine how difficult that would be to keep track of all these cassettes and what goes where and what's rewound and not. Well, we have now graduated to using these digital players. I have one right here. So the digital player is nice to hold. It's got a great handle on it. And the digital cartridges that look like this have just one book. The whole thing, or you can actually get more than one book to fit on there, but you know, you don't have to have multiple things to keep track of. You just have the one cartridge. It's got your whole book on it. It doesn't have to rewind. So that's been really cool to see, and our patrons really appreciate that change.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that is really, really interesting. I mean, so is it an audio track that's sort of put into that tape? How does that work?
Right. So the cartridges are actually just USB drives that are encased in plastic.
Oh, really? Wow.
And so the files are downloaded onto the cartridges and then distributed. The other thing that we have available is the Braille and audio reading download service. So if patrons are comfortable with it, they can actually download their own books onto cartridges or USB sticks, which also work with the digital player.
Sure. Now, are individuals that use the reader, for example, are they able to buy those cartridges for their own bookshelves and things like that? Or?
Yeah, the blank cartridges are available for purchase.
Got it. Wonderful. And so you sort of answered my other question, so I'll move forward. But aside from the electronic book reader, you also have something in the library that you and I talked before the show that I thought was extremely interesting, and that is a currency reader that's provided by the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing. And would you mind talking a little bit about that?
Sure. I actually have one right in my pocket. I can show you.
Sure.
So the currency reader became available to all eligible patrons in 2015.
Okay.
But not everybody's aware that we have it, so this is a really good opportunity for me to bring it up.
Exactly.
It's just small. It's actually got a ring on it, so you can keep it on your keychain or lanyard or whatever. You know, you can stick it in your pocket too.
Sure, sure.
But it's called the I-bill, and you just take any sort of currency denomination and stick it in there, and you push a button.
Oh, wow.
I didn't have it straight that time. And so, I don't know if you could hear that at home, but it said 1 because I have a dollar bill.
Sure.
And so that's just really useful in case you can't tell the difference between what kind of bills you're holding.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that is a tremendous tool. Now, for those that do a bit of traveling, right, does this read other currencies from around the world, or does it only read American currency?
Good question. It's
Sure.
a U.S. currency reader, so
Okay.
only U.S. dollars.
Okay, sure, but still, wonderful tool to have, and I think very, very interesting as well. Definitely. I think that's a lot of fun. So, before I get to the next question, it's very interesting. We've got a bit of a video to sort of talk more about the book reader and how that works. So let's take a look.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
The digital talking book player is used to play books on digital cartridge or USB drive. This player is supplied to eligible patrons by the National Library Service for the Blind and Physically Handicapped. There are 2 models of this digital player, a standard model and an advanced model. This is the advanced model. The rewind, play stop, and fast forward controls are centered and located close to the front edge of the player. The square green play stop button initiates the playing of a book or stops a book that's playing. The white rewind fast forward buttons to the left and right of the play stop button move the reading position through the book. Further in time, the longer the button is held down. Just behind the rewind, play, and fast forward buttons are the power, sleep, and volume buttons. The round red power button is used to turn the player on and off, and will make an announcement once you've pushed it.
Player on.
Odd and the Frost Giants.
Current position.
Chapter 3.
The white sleep button is used to start or continue playback for certain intervals of time until you fall asleep. The yellow volume buttons are shaped like arrowheads and point up and down to control your volume. Behind the power, sleep, and volume controls is a raised line running from one end of the player to the other. This divides the 6 most frequently used controls on the front of the player from the advanced row of controls that includes the white diamond-shaped information button, which will tell you more about the book you're listening to and the power status of the battery. To make a bookmark in your book, press the Mark button.
Bookmark inserted.
To navigate between your bookmarks, use the Next and Previous buttons.
And he felt that feeding them was the least he could.
The Tone button will allow you to change the pitch of the narrator's voice, and the Speed buttons will allow you to change how quickly the book is narrated. The book cartridge is shaped kind of like a cassette. One end of the cartridge has a round finger hole, and the other end of the cartridge with the USB connector is beveled, so it will only fit in the player one way.
Odd and the Frost Giants.
Current position.
That is awesome. I mean, it's amazing the innovations now that are coming out in terms of accessible technology.
Yeah.
When did the library find out about this product?
Oh, well, geez. I think that it was actually starting to roll out slowly when we first took over administration
Sure.
of the library, but it was on a limited basis, you know, so that they only produced a certain number of quantity.
Sure.
And so probably about 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
But now we've got plenty, and
Yeah.
so anybody can get one. We've got them for all of our patrons, and some people like to have 2 of them, you know,
Okay.
one for travel, one to stay at home, one for upstairs, one for downstairs.
Sure.
And we can do that if it's needed.
Okay.
So we do have a number of players to
What-
distribute.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really, really awesome. And then the other question, too, I noticed that, you know, it usually comes through like a loudspeaker, but for, you know, say if they are traveling and they're on a plane or something like that, or they need to be, obviously in a quiet setting.
yeah.
Is there a headphone jack so that they can use headphones?
Of course, there's a headphone jack, yes.
Yeah, sure.
And we actually supply headphones to our patrons, too.
Oh, wow.
So if somebody is in need of headphones, they can just give us a call and we'll send some out.
Sure, man, that is great. And then, so if somebody is interested in using this, and say they're going to the library, but, they're not really sure who to talk to or how to address that or how to get a hold of a staff member to get a hold of an electronic book reader, how do they do that?
Well, if they're at the library, they can ask any of our staff members who can supply them with an application, information. If they're at the library and they fill out an application, they can actually receive a digital player on the spot.
Okay.
If they're not already in the library, they can contact us by calling us at 734-327-4224.
Okay.
And we can actually fill out an application with them over the phone.
Wow.
It's very easy. So we make it so that somebody doesn't actually have to come into the library to receive services. Another way to reach us would be over email, wlbpd@aadl.org. And you can always find the application and more information on our website at wlbpd.aadl.org.
Okay, see, I'm leaving all the tough grammatical things to you because, you know how to say them.
When you say the acronym over and over and over again, eventually you get pretty good at it.
Yeah, no, definitely, you are. And, have you noticed a lot of, positive feedback from library patrons about the assistive technology that you're providing?
Yes, we receive really great feedback a lot. It's quite nice and rewarding. We have patrons who will call us and say, I don't know what I would do without this service. And they're avid readers, and so it's really good to be able to provide the service.
No, definitely, and I think, as a person that does attend that very branch of the library, again, I think it's just says a lot about what you guys at the Ann Arbor District Library are doing and how you're moving forward. So you've worked for the library now for 8 years, and you've met a lot of people, done a lot of things. Can you share with us just one great memory that you have of working at the library, whether it has to do with disability or not? But we'd love to hear one.
Well, sure. The one that's coming to mind is when I was working at Visions 2016, which is a vendor fair that we put on every other year. We invite a bunch of people to come and show off their technology, and we have speakers, and it's just a really great event where people can come and learn about assistive technology and the library and all that. Well, this past year, when I was just working at the library table, and a couple of guys came up to me to learn about the service, and one of the gentlemen had unfortunately just recently learned that he was going to be blind for the rest of his life.
Oh, man.
And understandably, he was a little bit upset about that.
Yeah, I would be too.
He was listening to me describe the services, and I could see in his face that he was brightening a little bit. And then as he realized that he still was going to be able to read, tears formed in his eyes.
Oh,
and it was, and then they formed in my eyes too, you know, because it just, I think reading is so important, and it clearly was to him. And so it was great to be able to realize that even though he's going through this time in his life where he may not be feeling so great, at least we can be there and support him. And so that was a really great memory.
Wow. I mean, what a story that is. I mean, somebody that, is going through that, losing their sight, sort of losing hope a little bit, saying, my goodness, I'm not going to be able to continue to educate myself, continue to read and read the things that I love. But then the fact that you were there and the Ann Arbor District Library was there to give him hope again, and the fact that you were there to see that is a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Another thing I wanted to ask you, too, for the patrons that have disabilities that are coming into the city or that are new to the city, why should they come visit the Ann Arbor District Library?
Well, there's lots of reasons to visit the library. If you're coming downtown, we've got a really awesome unusual stuff collection. It includes things like music tools. We just recently got guitars.
Oh, did
so
you really?
You can actually check out guitars from the library, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
We have art prints that you can check out and hang in your home or office. We've got different electronic devices that I don't even know what they do.
Oh, really?
You know? Yeah, we've got telescopes, and we have microscopes, and just all sorts of different science tools,
Sure.
kits where you can learn about the brain or the heart and things like that. So it's just a wide array of things that you can enjoy, and we
Yeah.
keep most of that stuff at the downtown library. But our branches are also really cool too. They're all really unique buildings. They're all accessible. We just recently renovated the Westgate branch
Oh,
that's in the
nice.
Westgate Shopping Center, and
Yeah.
it's quite a lovely, comfortable space to just come and hang out, study, read. There's a Sweetwater's inside, so you can get a coffee or tea.
There we go.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
No, that is awesome. And I think the fact, too, that you guys really, at the Ann Arbor District Library, push for it to be a center of knowledge and a center of learning, but also a gathering place for people.
Absolutely.
You know, for book clubs, to talk about great literature that they're reading or have a commonality in some way through literature and through learning, I think is amazing, too. And speaking of literature, you and I talked a little bit before the show, too, about what books you're reading.
Yeah.
And you brought one up to me that I found very entertaining, and it's called It's Always Something, and it's by Gilda Radner.
Yeah.
So how do you like that book, and can you talk a little bit about that?
I actually really liked that book a lot. You know, Gene Wilder died, I think, sometime in the last year.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I was learning about him and his life, and he was married to Gilda Radner. And I really didn't know a whole lot about her, only that she had died fairly young, and so and that she was a comedian.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, how do these things sort of go together? And so I picked up her book, and it's a really funny, sad story, you know, and
Yeah.
it was true in her life that it was always something.
Yep.
Something was always going on with her health or her relationships, and it was just thing after thing after thing. And yet here she is, this hilarious woman.
Yeah.
So it was just really interesting to read about that, but, you know, also very sad.
Yeah, and she did some things on SNL, didn't she?
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
kind of a genius on SNL, so that
Yeah.
was cool to read about, too.
No, and that's amazing. I mean, I think that's the power of stories, right?
For
Is
sure.
that they're relatable, and in my opinion, they make you feel like you're not alone. That
Absolutely.
the things that have gone on to you, you know, have happened to others. And to me, and I don't know if you agree with this, but I think the best stories are the ones that are most relatable, the ones that we can relate to and say, I've felt those exact emotions, or I've been through that too. And I think that's what's great about literature in the library, is that you get to experience that. Would you agree?
I definitely agree, and I think that's one of the reasons that probably my favorite genre of book is memoir. You know, because I find that I relate to these true stories. You know, I like fiction too. I'm reading fiction all the time as well, but I just really like to be able to get an insight into a real person's life, you know, and be able to say, okay, well, they got through this, I can get through it too.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's really powerful. I think it's something that, you know, all of us need, not just people with disabilities.
I definitely agree.
And talk about, too, the Ann Arbor District Library. You guys also have speakers that come in and do talks and things
Yeah.
like that. Do you mind touching a little bit on that?
Sure. We have programs all the time. So we'll bring in authors to talk about their recent work. We have film screenings sometimes, which are really great.
Nice.
But all sorts of programming, whether it be chess tournaments, crafting. We're doing coloring for adults now.
Oh, really? When is that? I'd like to.
Oh, I
I'd
don't know
like
off the top of my head, but you can go to aadl.org/events.
Okay.
And you can get our most recent event listing.
Yeah,
and
I'm
see
usually
when
an
it's coming up.
outside the lines kind of guy, though. Is that okay?
We don't judge. That's
okay,
fine.
good, good. I mean, I try, but it's hard. You know,
It
you
is
gotta
hard.
Be very, very focused.
Yeah.
But so coloring for adults,
Yep.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you guys also have that. Do you still do that comic book show?
We do.
Okay.
We have the comic festival every year, and I'm not exactly sure when
okay.
it will be this year, but it's usually a really well-attended event.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been to it a couple of times, and just so fun because they have
Yeah.
all these authors and all these artists from, you know, all around the state and even some from out of state. And it's just so interesting. They come right to the Ann Arbor District Library.
Yeah.
And very, very fun. And then you've even had writers from great shows like Family Guy come in and do talks about their books,
Yeah.
which is amazing. And I hope that she can come back because the one time that she did come, I wasn't able to attend. But do you remember that writer's name by chance?
I don't remember her name, but there's a possibility that you might be able to still catch it because we record some of our events.
Oh, great.
So you might be able to look on the website and see if that's one of the ones that we happen to record.
There we go. No, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, for those watching, is there anything else that you really want to highlight about the Ann Arbor District Library?
Well, I just want to say if you need any more information about the Washtenaw Library for the Blind and Physically Disabled, please reach out and give us a call. I'm going to say the phone number again.
Sure.
It's 734-327-4224. We're happy to answer any questions about our service as well as service outside of Washtenaw County. If you know somebody who sounds like they would be eligible for our service, which is basically that you can't read a standard print book. So if you need large print or if you have a hard time holding a book, you're eligible for the service. Know anybody that seems like it would be a good fit for this type of service, give us a call. And even if they're not in Washtenaw County, we can find out where the library is that serves them.
Okay. Oh, really quickly, if I may,
Sure.
you talked about just board games and different things. Could you play that big chess set with me sometime that's in the window of the downtown library? I'd love to do that with you.
I would try, but I think we would need to use one of the manuals that's in the rack next to it because I don't know how to play chess.
Oh, really? Oh, well, don't worry. We'll learn. That'll be fun.
Okay, sounds
All right,
good.
great. Well, thank you so much, Katie, for joining me.
You're
And
welcome.
folks, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to, again, thank Katie for joining me and hope that you enjoyed the program. And please be sure to tune into Ann Arbor Inclusive next month. And as always, stay awesome, Ann Arbor.